Welcome to the Fall of Infants. If you enjoy the content, remember to like, subscribe and share with your friends.
Keisha and Leo were two babies who lived at home with their mother. Keisha, the older of the pair, was about 3 years old, and Leo was a little over a year younger. They often got into mischief, so Mother would have to keep them in a playpen when she wasn't around to make sure that they didn't cause any trouble. There was one time when she went to the grocery store and forgot to lock them in the playpen. When she came back home, she walked through the door to see them sitting on a couch. They had tossed her white throw pillows on the ground and were watching television. They were punished severely that night. One day, Mother discovered that they had rats. The dirty, nasty creatures were in the walls and under the floorboards, skittering at all hours and stealing food from the pantry. She knew she needed to get rid of them before they ate around to the house and home, so she placed her children into their playpen while she went down to the basement to retrieve some rat poison. When Mother returned, she placed the bottle of rat poison in the playpen. Looking sternly at her offspring, she warned them. "Now, you two can play with any toys I've left in here for you, but under no circumstances are you to touch the rat poison. That's for the rats, not for little boys and girls." "Yes, Mother," the children replied in unison. Keisha and Leo were excited about just how many great toys they had to enjoy. There were a couple of building blocks, a rattle, and 3 stuffed animals. The babies played and played with their toys, but after a few hours, they got bored. "We've played with everything in here already," Leo whined. "Can't we find anything new?" "Like what?" Keisha asked. "These are the only toys we have in the house. Been ages since Mother got us anything new." "I dunno. I sure would like a new stuffed animal. The ones we have are so old and gross." "Well, Mother said that they came from a good man named Will. We should be happy he let us have them," Keisha told him. Leo shrugged indifferently in response. As they tried to think of something else that they could do, Keisha heard a voice trying to get her attention from over by the stuffed kangaroo. "Psst," it hissed, and Keisha crawled over, poking the stuffed animal with her finger. "Psst," it repeated. "Hey kid, over here." She peered behind the kangaroo and discovered a rat looking up at her as it crouched low to the ground. Tilting her head out of curiosity, she asked, "Did you just talk?" "Yeah," the rat confirmed. "Listen, I've been watching you and your brother for a while now, and I've noticed you ain't touched that one toy in the middle of your playpen." "Mother told us not to," Keisha explained. "She said it was for rats only, and we're not allowed to touch it." "Nonsense," the rat exclaimed. "She just don't want you guys to play with the coolest toy of all." Keisha looked back at the bottle of rat poison skeptically. "It doesn't look like it would be very much fun," he asserted. "That's because it's a special kind of toy. You've got to eat it before you can have any kind of real fun." "Are you sure? There's a big picture of a skull on it. Doesn't that mean it's dangerous?" "Dangerously awesome, maybe," the rat said. "Trust me, I ate them once with my siblings, and we ended up having so much fun. We never wanted to play with any of our boring old toys ever again. Don't let your mother's dumb rules keep you from having a good time, kid." Maybe you're right." "Of course I'm right. I'll go over there, stick one of those pellets in your mouth, and swallow it. Promise you won't regret it." "Okay. Thanks, rat," Keisha replied, and crawled back towards the middle of the playpen. She tossed a block at Leo's head to get his attention. "Hey, guess what? That rat just told me we should eat some of those green things Mother left in the bottle. He says it's a lot of fun." Leo glanced in surprise at where Keisha had pointed and saw the rat gave him a thumbs up. "Are you sure we can trust him? Mother made it pretty clear that we weren't supposed to touch it," he stated. "Come on, don't be such a baby," Keisha told him. "Okay, you convinced me," he responded. She reached into the bottle and pulled out 2 of the bright green pellets. Placing one in Leo's hand and keeping one for herself, they counted to 3 before swallowing the rat poison. It tasted sweet, almost like candy, and the children smiled at one another, thinking that the rat had been right. When Mother came back, she found the babies passed out in their playpen. She leaped over the side and scooped up the bottle of rat poison, meticulously counting every single pellet. To her horror, 2 seemed to be missing. Glancing down at the unmoving bodies of her children, she realized they must have eaten the missing pellets. Now there wouldn't be enough to kill the rats. After several hours, Keisha and Leo finally regained consciousness. they discovered Mother looming over them with a furious expression on her face. Even before she opened her mouth, they knew that they were in big trouble. "How dare you?" Mother growled. "I specifically told you not to touch the rat poison, and yet you two deliberately disobeyed me. What do you have to say for yourselves?" "Be sorry, Mother," Keisha said meekly. She and her brother's skin still looked pale and clammy, as the rat poison had finished coursing through their systems. With languid eyes, she tried to focus on the shape of the fuming woman in front of her as she tried to explain herself. "The rat told us to eat it. He said we would have more fun than ever before. I guess we should have known better than to trust an unfamiliar rat." "You think?" Mother snapped, shaking her head at the stupidity of her kids. "I'm at my wit's end with you two. I can't deal with your nonsense anymore. I'm done. I want you out of my house by the end of the day." "But where will we go, Mother?" Leo asked, his voice breaking as he was on the verge of tears. "I don't know. Probably foster care," she said. "Go pack your things and I'll drive you over there tonight." Mother dropped Keisha and Leo off at the front door of foster care and returned home. She poured herself a glass of Chardonnay, hoping it would help her relax. The whole ordeal with the rat poison had really gotten her upset. Feeling like she'd needed to vent her frustration, she got on her computer and made a Facebook post about the situation. It wasn't long before she started getting dozens of likes and comments from sympathetic individuals. "Good on you for finally putting your foot down on those brats," one commenter said. "I can't believe they would disobey you like that," said another. "They got what they deserved." "Mum goals," added the third. However, not everyone seemed to be on the mother's side. There was a small but vocal minority who blamed her for what had happened. "This is disgusting, and anyone who thinks you're on the right are terrible human beings," stated one of the dissenting posts. "Don't blame your kids for your bad parenting choices." "Don't blame her," countered one of the posters on Mother's side. "The babies knew what they were doing was wrong. They made their own decisions. They chose to listen to the talking rat. Whatever punishment they face, no one's fault but their own." Feeling vindicated, Mother logged off Facebook and went to bed. She slept very well that night, as there were no crying babies to wake her up in the middle of the night asking for their supper. In the morning, she went back on Facebook, only to discover that her story had gone viral. Several online media outlets had picked it up, and a debate raged across the internet about who was right and who was wrong. There seemed to be a pretty large majority that was pro-mother, but about 20% of people appeared to support babies. Even some celebrities weighed in on the matter. As with anything involving opinions on the internet, things got pretty heated. Most of the discourse focused on the conduct of the babies or mother's lack of oversight, but a few people stooped to making personal attacks on her physical appearance. Some even sent her death threats, telling her that they were going to make her eat rat poison to see how she likes it. The story about mother and her babies became such a hot-button issue that even the mainstream media got in on the action. The hit TNBS show Good Point Bad Point had a panel including 2 expert social media influencers, a child psychologist, and a former pest exterminator. The host introduced the episode's guests and the topic of discussion. Right from the start, the psychologist and the exterminator were at each other's throats. "I don't see how there's even a debate here," the psychologist said. "Mother was clearly negligent in putting an open bottle of rat poison into her children's playpen. What does she think was going to happen? She thought they would listen to her like they're supposed to," the exterminator fired back. "How can you possibly blame her when the babies were obviously the ones at fault?" "Babies often have underdeveloped brains," the psychologist responded. "Between that and the negative influence of them by the talking rat, it should have been a foregone conclusion that leaving the rat poison in there with them would lead to disaster. As far as I can tell, there was no reason for it to be in the playpen whatsoever. Everyone knows that the best place for rat poison is in a child's playpen," the exterminator retorted. "Rats are notoriously drawn to the scent of wet diapers and baby powder." "I think mother had the right of it," chimed in Sarah, one of the influencers. "When I was a baby, I would never have dared to do something my mum told me not to. She had no tolerance for tomfoolery. I would have been sent to foster care immediately." Yeah, same here, Jack the other influencer added. I remember one time, my parents left me home alone for the weekend and told me if I threw any wild parties, I'll be disowned. I didn't break their rules, and I was even younger than these kids are. Their age is no excuse for bad behavior. These are all good opinions, but I think we're missing the wider point here, the host interjected. When a baby misbehaves, is it okay to send them to foster care? Or should you have to keep them and deal with their disciplinary problems yourself? I think we should encourage more parents to send them away, Sarah stated. Kids wouldn't so brazenly disrespect their parents if they knew that there was a real chance for that one slip-up that could result in them being shipped off to foster care. I agree with the spirit of your argument, the exterminator said, but I don't think we necessarily have to be quite so harsh. In my house, we work under the 3 strikes rule. I'll forgive you if you disobey me twice, but do it again, there are no more chances. So far, this has worked pretty well for me. My dad just kept a box in the living room marked 10-2 foster care. Anytime I even thought about acting up, he would just nod towards the box, and that'd send me straight real quick, Jack revealed. It sounds like these babies were habitual rule breakers. I'm guessing Mother was more than patient with them before this incident, but she finally realized she couldn't keep ignoring things like this. The psychologist shook his head in disbelief, saying, "Since I'm apparently the only voice of reason here, I'd like to point out the fact that it's incredibly unhealthy to expect children that young to truly comprehend the meaning of right and wrong. They are still learning what rules are and why we have them, so they'll naturally try pushing the boundaries of what's acceptable in order to test those limits." I don't think so, Jack vehemently disagreed. If you don't lay down the law and do it early, your kids will just walk all over you. And if it's before they can walk, they'll crawl all over you. Well, I guess you'd be fine with babies drinking whiskey and smoking crack, right? Let them test their boundaries. That's not at all what I said, and you know it. We're talking about a mother who put a dangerous substance within arm's reach and then got mad at them for acting like babies and putting it in their mouths. If anything, your argument supports my side more than yours. Would you be okay with a parent leaving open bottles of whiskey or crack pipes that a child could grab? If they told their kids that they weren't allowed to touch it, sure, Jack asserted. The onus is on the babies to not get drunk and do drugs. Nobody put a gun to their head and told them to eat the rat poison, so far as we know. Not even the talking rat. May I also remind you that the poison was meant for said rat and his colony infesting the home, the exterminator noted. By eating it themselves, those babies didn't just break Mother's rules, they also made it impossible for her to deal with one of the most hazardous household pests known to man. If you ask me, it would have been irresponsible for her not to send those brats to foster care. Yeah, she deserves Mother of the Year award with her parenting skills, Sarah said. An interesting point, the host stated. Our polls currently show that nearly 80% of those asked about this story support Mother. It can't be easy to drop your own children off at foster care, the exterminator responded. Maybe if they hadn't been hers, sure. Any of us would do that without a second thought. But this is her own flesh and blood we're talking about. The kind of mental and emotional fortitude that requires should be lauded. How can you say that? The psychologist asked, clearly getting worked up. If her kids were so important to her, why would she place them in such a precarious situation? She didn't, the exterminator insisted. But she left the bottle of rat poison sitting open in their playpen, the psychologist exclaimed in exasperation. If I didn't know better, I'd think she was actively trying to get those kids to eat it. Hey, you knock that off right now, I shouted indignantly. I will not have those kinds of personal attacks or attempts at character assassination on my program. This dope's clearly just another misogynist whose toxic masculinity won't allow him to accept just how hard a single mother has it in society today, Sarah pointed out. If I didn't know better, I'd think he just hates women. You might be onto something, the exterminator agreed. Would we even be having this discussion if it was a man who left an open bottle of rat poison in his baby's playpen, forbade them from eating it, and then punished the children when they disobeyed? My guess is no, he'd be fine with it. That's not the psychologist tried to say, but the host cut him off. I'm sorry, that's all the time we have for today. Tune in tomorrow when our topic will be lemons, tasty fruit, or scourge of all canker sores. Thank you, and have a pleasant day. With all the attention Mother's story was getting, it was inevitable that bad faith actors would get involved, trying to politicize the issue to suit their agenda. Several pro-life advocacy groups attempted to steer the conversation towards the notion that Mother had attempted to use the rat poison to perform a postnatal abortion, while a special interest group known as Mothers Against Nurture Interventionist Antithetical Childcare held a story up as the poster child for the nature side of the nature versus nurture argument. Things were quickly spiraling out of control, especially when someone released her personal information to the masses. Mother was tired of the whole situation and just wanted to live her life without being harassed by every internet troll who popped out the woodwork to mock her hardships. When it became clear how negatively the viral story was affecting her, well-meaning individuals began reaching out to her with offers to lend her their aid. Media mogul Christian West donated a new house to Mother, promising to ensure her new address never leaked to the public. Major electronics manufacturer Supertech provided her with the newly released smartphone and laptop, including military-grade encryption programs on the devices to prevent her from being hacked or having a number and location traced. Social media platforms joined in to help her too, banning users and erasing posts that were critical of her actions. This allowed her to begin to recover some sense of normalcy in her day-to-day life. The overwhelming support that was shown to Mother was only continued when someone started a crowdfunding page on her behalf. It raised nearly $2.5 million to pay for her expenses and let her have a fresh start in life without the burden of her disrespectful babies. She was elated to finally have the ability to live out her dreams of buying a luxury yacht to sail around the entire Gulf of Mexico. But while things were looking up for Mother, they were looking equally down for the babies. "Keisha, I'm scared," Leo said to his older sister as the foster care guards escorted them in chains through child block B. "I want to go home."
"Ah, check out the fresh diaper here,"
The bald-headed baby, missing all his teeth, mocked, pressing his face against one of the bars in his playscell.
"I think he misses his mummy."
The entire block erupted into roars of laughter and cruel comments directed towards the new arrivals.
Keisha glared at the bald-headed baby,
but he continued to grin.
"Tell you what, sister, I'll give you 3 jars of mashed sweet potatoes for that brother of yours." "Forget it,"
she replied angrily.
"He's not for sale."
Turning to Leo, she whispered,
"Don't worry, I would never trade you away for 3 jars of that stuff. You'd have to offer me at least half a dozen peas and carrots."
"Thanks, Keisha. All the best," Leo responded.
"Keep it moving,"
the guy behind them warned, turning on his stun baton and prodding Leo with it to make his point. The boy let out a yelp and quickly shuffled forwards, causing the guard and foster babies alike to cackle him this time. Keisha and Leo were taken to an empty playstyle and locked inside. Keisha sighed and slumped to the ground, dropping her head into her hands. "This is all my fault," she murmured. "I'm sorry I got us into this mess." "It's not your fault," Leo said, patting his shoulder comfortingly. "It was that talking rat that made us do it."
"Psst,"
the voice whispered, trying to get their attention. Keisha glanced around the place so anxiously. "Who's there?" he asked, a note of worry in her tone. "You sound familiar."
"It's me,"
the rat cried gleefully as he jumped out of the dirty drain in the corner of the playcell.
"Fancy seeing you here."
Keisha frowned and folded her arms in front of her. "Don't talk to me. You got us in so much trouble, and now we're stuck here in foster care."
"What? That's not my fault,"
the rat insisted.
"How was I supposed to know Mother was so strict? I figured the most you'd get was a spanking, maybe no dessert with supper."
"That already happened every day," Leo informed the rat sullenly.
"Oh, so you guys are regular troublemakers then? That explains why she threw you out like yesterday's trash."
"We aren't troublemakers," Keisha pouted. "Mother always treated us badly, no matter what we did." The rat motioned around the small concrete room and said,
"He treated you worse than this? I'm thinking you guys actually had it pretty good with her. But you blew it, and now you're stuck here."
The babies began to cry, and the rat scurried to lap up the salty drops of water as they splashed against the floor.
"You should have never trusted a talking rat."
Meanwhile, Mother was reveling in her new life as a media darling. She was even invited onto the Harper Freeman talk show to speak about her experiences. Mother showed up in a brand new designer outfit and fresh from a rejuvenating trip in the Gulf. It also looked like she may have had some cosmetic work done. Most people were too polite to say that to her face. "Wow, Mother, you look terrific," Harper crooned as she welcomed the woman on stage. "It looks like the last few months have been kind to you." "I can't complain," Mother replied. "It's been a wild ride, but I'm finally in a place where I can just relax and enjoy it." For those of you who haven't been following the story, I can't imagine there's many of you considering the kind of applause she saw when she walked out here. Mother had a Facebook post go viral a while back, and she recounted the harrowing tale of how no-good, dirty, rotten babies callously disregarded her express orders not to touch the rat poison she placed in their playpen. "Tell me, Mother, what did it feel like when you discovered what they'd done?" "It felt like they'd ripped my heart out through my stomach," Mother explained. "I found them lying there, unconscious, and I just had this feeling in my gut that they'd stolen some of the rat poison pellets and eaten them. Once I confirmed my suspicion, I lost it. These kids had been nothing but trouble from the moment they were born. Just absolute monsters." The crowd made sympathetic sounds, and Harper nodded her head. "It sure sounds that way," she said. "I can't imagine the kind of horrible pain you must have been going through at the time. You're a true inspiration to all of us. Seeing everything you had to deal with, I think most of our problems seem silly by comparison. I thought I had it bad when I nearly lost my leg to gangrene, but that was a cakewalk next to your ordeal. How have you managed to come out the other side so strong?" "I just take everything day by day," Mother answered, wiping her watering eyes. "Any time I start to feel overwhelmed, I just thank God that I've had such a great support system to get me through these trying times." "Like I said, inspirational, and you certainly have plenty of support here." Harper held her hands out, causing the crowd to erupt into another round of raucous applause. "Now, if you don't mind, we're going to take some questions from the audience." "That's fine with me," Mother said with a wide smile. "Great. So who here has something they want to ask Mother?" Harper got up and walked towards the crowd, who'd all started excitedly raising their hands. "How about you?" She pointed at a red-headed woman with a brown shirt on. "Yes, first I just want to say thank you, Mother. Your story helped me to finally stand up to my babies and tell them that if they didn't stop fussing at bath time, I was going to send them to foster care like Keisha and Leo. Now they go in the water without any trouble." "I'm happy to hear that," Mother told the woman. "Anyway, my question is, why didn't you get rid of them sooner? It sounds like they've been bad kids a long time. What made the situation different from all those times in the past?" "Good question," Harper remarked, nodding her head. "Mother?" "I guess I've always just been too soft for my own good," Mother answered. "They would misbehave and I would just give them minor punishments, thinking that maybe they'd change. But you can't fix broken people, and it's not your responsibility either. I think what really pushed me to get tough on them this time was the fact that by eating the rat poison, I knew those disease-ridden beasts would sneak into my kitchen and steal all my hard-earned food. The rats would still be a problem, too." The audience laughed at her jest. "No, but seriously, I just bought a really tasty cherry cobbler, and the idea that there would be some rats left alive to take it from me made me realise I wasn't helping anyone by being lenient on my babies. They had to go." "Great answer," Harper said. "Okay, who's next?" She gestured at a tall, dark-haired woman in the front row. "Let's hear from you." "I am astonished that everyone seems to be treating this woman as a hero. Anyone with half a brain can see she's not." The crowd began to boo, but Harper hushed them down. Now, none of that. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. Let's hear her out." She nodded at the dark-haired woman. "Go ahead, miss." "What I want to know is, why would you leave an open bottle of rat poison in your baby's playpen? Like, I get you told them not to touch it, but it was in the playpen with all of their toys, right? I'd bet most children would at least end up playing with the pellets, if not sticking them in their mouths. Didn't this occur to you when you did it?" "Absolutely not," Mother asserted. "I naturally assumed that they would obey my wishes for them not to touch it." The audience applauded her statement, the majority showing they supported her. "Let me ask you, do you have any children?" "Yes, I have 3, the dark-haired woman responded. "Then you should know what I'm talking about. Don't you punish your kids when they misbehave?" Well, of course, but... So isn't it a little hypocritical to expect me not to punish my children when they misbehave? Mother asked, cutting the woman off. The crowd was almost feral in how much they were cheering for Mother. I did the same thing that any mother in my position would do. I'm getting tired of these baseless accusations from people who seem intent on tearing me down. All I've ever done is speak my truth and be the best version of myself that I can be. If you can't deal with that, then I suggest you take a long, hard look in the mirror, madame, because the problem isn't with me, it's with you. As Mother finished talking, the audience broke out into utter chaos. They began screaming and shouting, clawing at their seats and climbing up the walls. The dark-haired woman was soon fending off vicious attacks from all sides, and eventually toppled to the floor with a set of fake nails jutting out the back of her chest. Harper had to be escorted to safety by her security team, and Mother simply walked out the back door. It was the highest rated episode in the history of Harper's show. Time stretched on endlessly for Keisha and Leo. They spent their days and nights locked away in their playcell, unable to enjoy the nice toys that their old playpen had. Even though they actually got fed supper on time, it was an unpalatable slop that made them sick to eat. They got 1 hour to go outside in the yard, but the other babies made that time miserable for them. Eventually, Ish became so desperate for something edible that she sold Leo away for half a jar of applesauce. And she didn't even like applesauce. Such is the fate of babies who misbehave and disobey their parents. While this story dominated the news cycle for a while, as with everything, something new came along and caught everyone's attention, making them all forget about Mother and her kids. She didn't mind though, as she was able to reap the benefits of her short time in the limelight. While cruising the Gulf of Mexico, she ran into a rich prince of a small Eastern European country. They fell in love and ended up having a lavish wedding at the royal palace. He gave her everything she wanted, including a pair of respectful, obedient babies who never caused her any grief. He would often send them postcards from her and her husband's trips around the world, and the cadre of nannies that cared for them so that they were eternally grateful for these moments of contact with their parents' words. Keisha and Leo would never again leave foster care. In the end, the world had decided that Mother was right. Anyone who held a dissenting opinion was overpowered in numbers and volume, no matter how hard they tried to get their voices to be heard. It's not easy to debate in a world where people latch onto an inflexible point of view and won't even entertain the idea of hearing what the other side has to say. It's in this environment of intolerance that discourse goes to die. But now, dear reader, I invite you to answer the question for yourselves. Who was right? And who was wrong?